Hey up, it's Klye here. Metal Gear Solid 5 has a huge arsenal of weapons to pick from, but Ishmael gives you a pistol in the very first mission. So what if we only used that pistol? Can you beat Metal Gear Solid 5 using only Snake's pistol? Well, no, because very quickly after getting that pistol, we have to shoot a shotgun at the man on fire. Although, this doesn't seem to count on your stats, so let's ignore that and we'll start the game proper. The pistol you get given is called the AMD-114. It's pretty good. The feeding ramp is polished to a mirror sheen. The slide's been reinforced, and the interlock with the frame is tightened for added precision. The sight system's original too. The thumb safety is extended to make it easier on the finger, a long type trigger with non-slip grooves, a ring hammer. The base of the trigger guard's been filed down for a higher grip. And not only that, nearly every part of this gun is expertly crafted and customised. There's a few variations of the weapon as well, but to keep things consistent, I won't be using any of the modified versions. Interesting quandary though, the AMD-114CB is the fully upgraded version of the pistol. It's in the same upgrade path as the base model, and it's not a separate weapon. So is this the same gun? It's basically the AMD-114, but inside a fancy house and with a scope on it. You know, we do like to bend rules and make some slight leaps in logic. That's what makes all of these challenges a little bit more fun. However, this wasn't the version of the gun that Big Boss gave to us, so for now, I'm just going to stick with the regular version. Just for a little bit of variation though, I will be changing the paint job. Changing the visual of the gun gives no tactical advantage, but it does make for some fancy shooting. For our first real mission, we have to rescue the Burger King. Of course, we could just sneak in and sneak out, but where's the fun in that? Big Boss gave us this gun for a reason. He wants us to use it. He wants never-ending war, to give soldiers constant purpose. So, we are going to honour that wish. I took the suppressor off and I started blasting. I'm going to make myself the target and I'm going to fight every single enemy in these missions. That means they'll have to recruit more soldiers to fight me, creating endless conflict and slowing down Skullface. It's the perfect plan. I started this challenge off with 220 pistol kills on this save file, so let's see how many we end up with at the end of the challenge. Place your bets. As you can imagine, going to every location to shoot every enemy takes a long time, but I made sure that no enemy human escaped my grasp. Humans specifically, I'm not going to shoot any animals. I'm not a monster. Once the last man was done, I went to go and get Kaz. The second we take him to the LZ, the skulls show up. These guys are super soldiers and they're after Kaz. And if we get caught, then they'll basically instantly kill him. But we are trying to kill every single enemy in the game, aren't we? And these guys are enemies, so we're going to have to take them out. If we rush past them and throw Kaz into a bin, he's perfectly safe because bins, surprisingly, are bulletproof. So that means that we can just focus on fighting the skulls. These guys take quite a few bullets to take down, but they are the Misty Skulls, so they're the weakest version of the skulls. They still pose a threat, so by no means can we just stand there like a plonker and take damage, but as long as we try to avoid as much damage as possible and recover health if we do take damage, and of course land shots on their faces, we can beat these guys with just a pistol. I'll be honest, it only lasted about 3 minutes, which is a lot longer than I'm used to. But the skulls eventually got dropped and I got Kaz out of the bin to take him to the chopper. The first real mission in the game is complete and that took me almost an hour and I popped 77 people. Yeah, this is going to be a lengthy one. The mother base tutorial doesn't let you use any lethal weapons. But these guys are our friends, so we wouldn't shoot them anyway, would we? No, obviously, absolutely not. We never shoot our own team. Never. So I just pushed them off a ledge and teleported them to another dimension, which completes the mission. You can probably imagine how a lot of these missions go when it's just filled with meaty men. Everyone gets a few healthy doses of lead-acillin and we continue our crusade of never-ending conflict. So I'm only going to show the missions that are interesting or prove to be a pain in the anus with just a pistol. Otherwise we'd be here for hours and all I'd be doing is pistoling all over a bunch of men. So let's just show the fun ones. Or rather the not so fun ones. It doesn't take long for that though, because mission 5 over the fence has a prisoner we need to save and he's behind a locked door. These locks must have been made by slag or something because they're bulletproof. The only way into locked areas is by sticking your tool in the hole or with an explosive. However, it seems like when you go full aggro like this, the enemies can sometimes rush in and open the door for you, which means if we're quick, we can rush in there and save the engineer. I also considered saving these dudes because they did open the door for me. Considered. Mission 6, Where Do the Bees Sleep, has a helichopper, and since we're killing everyone, we have to take this out as well. Have you ever shot a helichopper with a pistol? It's not too easy, especially when they shoot back. It's a shame that V's horn only grows this big. With the amount of souls I've returned to the Wheel of Fate, you'd imagine that my horn would be so big I could use it to just ram into the chopper. But no, my horn is too small. I've heard that one before. About 5 minutes into this, a sandstorm showed up, which made things very tricky. Although during a sandstorm, the chopper can't see where you are, so it does make things slightly easier in a sense, because you don't get attacked. But at the same time, you can't really see the chopper, so it's kind of a swing and roundabout situation. Although during this sandstorm, I think it managed to fly away because I had a look around for it and I couldn't see it. So perhaps I dealt enough damage and it crashed? Who knows? That's a mystery for another day though, because we have bigger problems. Once we collect the honeybee, the skulls show up again. It is the Misty Boys though, so we have experience with these goons, and as we know, we can beat these guys with just a pistol. The foursome do tend to go at you one at a time, but sometimes they'll double team you. But just dodging away or running through them is often good enough to dodge their attacks because they can only do melee or shoot, so more often than not they'll go for melee if you're close enough. We do need to wait for a resupply of course, because 90 bullets isn't really enough. So I called in for a supply and I sat on the toilet while I waited for it to drop. I wish Johnny was in this game. Anyway, toilet time was rudely interrupted, but I managed to get some extra ammo and eventually I managed to take out the Misty Skulls. This is the last time we are going to see the Mist variant of the Skulls, so things are only going to get harder from here. The next mission that is an absolute nightmare is Mission 8, Occupation Forces. It takes place in the same area we just were, and we need to eliminate some dudes and destroy 2 tanks. As you can imagine, just using a pistol to destroy 2 tanks is not going to be easy. The mission also seems to imply that we're on a time limit, but thankfully that's not the case. And because we've been going loud, the soldiers are now able to call in for choppers. And the backup choppers that they call in are the strong versions of them as well. So these things take a very long time. Putting some holes in some men is easy enough, but this chopper must have taken well over 1,000 bullets before I managed to destroy it. Well, I say destroy, but it set on fire and then dematerialized. I guess that's good enough, at least it's no longer a problem. Now for the proper problem, the tanks. You can't just walk up to a tank and start shooting it, you will instantly die. But thankfully, I did find that if you go up into the cave and behind this green fence, you can shoot through the slit and hit the tanks from safety. They can't hit you from here, but you can hit them. Well, they can hit you sometimes, but it's a lot less likely. It's also in a good spot for supply drops, so we can just sit here and shoot the tanks, no problem. Even with the cheeky cheesy tactics, this takes an age. Seriously, never do this. It took me about half an hour just to take out 1 tank. Although I did find that the pistol has some penetrative power, so you don't specifically need to shoot through the slit, so it's mostly just a matter of time and patience. Patience being something that I lack, but thankfully I did have some videos to watch on the side, so this made things a little bit easier. Once the final tank is down, all we need to do is take out the squishy human and we win. Although, trying to be slightly cinematic, I may have walked off the edge of the cliff and fell to my death like a fucking lemon. Which meant I had to do all of that again. The checkpoint for this mission is just outside of the base. So I had to spend another hour shooting through the green fence. An hour slowly goes by and finally the tanks got blowed up. This time around I didn't drop off the cliff. I went down the safe way. I learned my lesson. I went up to the colonel with the big iron on my hip and I requested a duel. I won. 1 hour and 37 minutes and over 5,000 bullets fired. Pretty much double that because of the slight issue with heights that we had. So just over 3 hours and 10,000 bullets. I'd say this is going quite well so far, wouldn't you? Mission 9, Back Up, Back Down, an infamous mission for restricted runs since it requires you to take out several tanks. And this one is on a time limit, so if you're not quick enough, you fail the mission. But you do only need to take out one tank, so it's actually not as bad as it sounds. If we rush into the supply outpost and attack the stationary tank, it'll just sit here and it won't do anything. It also can't attack us if we're really close to it as well, so we're safe. Ish. We still have to keep an eye out for the soldiers, but they're no trouble really. It's mostly the tank, because sometimes it can shoot through itself and hit you, which is not good, but as long as you stay close, it probably won't attack. Probably. Initially, I shot out the tyres because I expected it to get wise and try and drive off, but for reasons unbeknownst to me, it never happens. It just stays here for the whole mission. Apparently the rear is the weakest point. I'm not exactly sure where on the rear, but I like shooting this bit here, so that's the bit I went for. It takes almost the whole time limit of the mission just to take out this one tank with the pistol, but since we are able to destroy it, then the mission is considered a success. Sadly, the other tanks can't be destroyed though. They're on a preset path, and if you get close, they'll just drive off. I suppose we could try and block them, but there's not much point because the mission is technically finished. That's just the game's mission though. Our mission is far from over. We still have to travel around the map and take out every enemy, which I did, happily. Mission 11, Cloaked in Silence. We need to fight the sniper known as Quiet. Fighting a sniper with a pistol? Yeah, but Quiet does tend to get tunnel vision, so you can just run in and give her a pop. However, she does take a lot of shots to take down. She moves around a lot as well, so you have to keep track of where she's going. But she does give herself away quite easily. I also shot my pistol out in the open, which makes her look for you, which gives her position away even easier. So that means we can just run to her new location and put a round in her. Of course, I did take some hits, but I made sure I gave as good as I got. It did take about 20 minutes, but eventually I shot all over her face and I took her down. Now then, we're given a choice here. Kill Quiet or bring her back to base. The gun is put into our hands and the decision is ours. Killing Quiet prevents her from becoming a buddy and means we don't get to play her mission. Quiet may have been our enemy, but is there such thing as an absolute timeless enemy? Yesterday's evil might be tomorrow's good. The soldiers that escaped my grasp in previous missions might end up joining Diamond Dogs by the next mission. So, for this challenge, I'm not going to pull the trigger. It's up to the individual to decide their own future. So I left this choice up to her. Well, not this choice. I can't allow her to Minecraft herself. She is not an hero. Plus, we also get an extra AMD 114, so this is the best option. There's a third option. We could just leave Quiet here, and she can determine her own fate. But we all know she has a lust for revenge, so she's just gonna come back and try and fight us again and again until we make a decision. If Quiet decides she does want a rematch later down the line, I'll give her one. While we contemplate our choices, we have to go and save Huey. This guy is someone who I feel is a timeless enemy, but that's his own fault. Quiet is willing to change and find love, even on the battlefield. Huey is a timeless twat. What's worse is that his creation, Sahelanthropus, shows up and the pistol is ineffective against it. We can take out the rocket pods, but when Sahelanthropus charges at the chopper, the pistol just doesn't have enough oomph to stop it. So, regrettably, we do have to use the chopper's minigun. It's not ideal, but it is the only way to do this. Although once enough damage has been dealt, we can put a few pistol rounds into it at the end, so I guess that counts for something. But not really. We'll fight this thing properly soon enough anyway. This is just a warm-up. Mission 13, Pitch Dark, is where things get a little bit dodgy. There's child soldiers in here and you're not allowed to shoot them. Sadly. The kids do only have toy guns though, so they're not really a threat. Everyone else, they're fair game. The big problem comes when we get to the oil tank. You need to use an explosive to blow this up, and pistol rounds, funnily enough, aren't good enough to do that. But I had an idea. If you shoot someone who's throwing a grenade, it'll blow up at their location and damage things around them. So I wondered, if you did this near the oil tank, could we use their own grenades against them? So I tried it out. I got a soldier to open the locked gate for me and I corralled him into the area where the oil tank was. I waited until he decided to throw a nade, and with a gentle nudge, the nade gets dropped and nothing. No matter how many grenades come this way, the tank will not explode. Grenades just do not deal friendly fire when it would actually be useful. So what about the enemy mortar? They shoot up the Eye of Sauron and then they'll shoot mortars at you. Well, they should, but it seems like they can't launch them into this area. Vehicles also can't get into this area. The gate is just a little bit too tight to push through. I got quite close, but it just pushed the car away. However, after many years, I finally figured this one out. All you need to do is park a car on the stairs behind the tank and shoot the car until it blows up. There's 2 cars in this mission that you can steal, but I blew them up earlier in testing, so I had to use my own car. I'd been at this for a long time. However, it's entirely possible to take a car from the enemy outpost, drive it here, blow it up, and take the oil tank along with it. Which means that this mission is also possible to do without weapons as well. Although we do need to drive a car, so perhaps it's a bend in the rules? I don't know. How do you feel about that? For me, it's fine. Mostly because as far as I know, this is the only way to do this without some kind of explosive. Now all we need to do is take out the walker gears and the rest of the goons and we win. Another one of my white whales harpooned. I always wanted to do this mission without weapons and now I finally found a way to do it. Very nice. The next mission that's a penis in the anus is mission 16, Traitor's Caravan. Not only is there a shitload of enemies to take out, which took me ages, but we also have to fight the armoured skulls. I had to run them back to the airport because being on top of there is a really good spot. There's plenty of cover and we can get supply drops much easier because we're out in the open. These guys are basically the mist skulls that we fought earlier, but with much more health and with the ability to get hard. You need to crack their shell before you can do real damage to them, so it's really just a test of endurance more than anything else. So as I say, it's not hard, but it is long. Some of the missions after this require a delicate touch, because if you go loud then it's basically over, or at least it'll put things on a bit of a tight time frame. So I had to stick the suppressor back on. Although I was proud of myself in mission 19, I managed to shoot the target out of the chopper right before he got into it, which made the chopper's AI freeze. After I took out the rest of the goons, I was able to take out the chopper without it attacking me. If only they were all this placid. It'd make things so much easier, wouldn't it? Mission 23, the White Mamba, is another mission that doesn't allow for lethal methods because it's full of child soldiers. We can still use the gun to hold the kids up, but we can't shoot them. We also can't shoot liquid, otherwise we'd change the future and create a time paradox. I would like to see some what ifs for Metal Gear Solid though. I think that'd be a lot of fun. If anyone out there is talented and creative, do some Metal Gear Solid what ifs. Me personally, I'd like to see a what if with Solidus. I think he's a very underrated character. He has a lot going for him, but he only has 1 game to his name. Well, technically 3, but only 1 game is he like the main focus. Anyway, enough about George. We've got to focus on Eli. Since we can't just attack him straight up, I wondered what would happen if I called for my pistol to be dropped on Liquid's head. Would it instantly knock him out if he wasn't suspecting it? So I gave it a go. Although the timing for this is surprisingly tight, even with max drop speed, he doesn't stick around long enough. So I crawled to roughly where he stands when he gets off his throne, and I put a marker on myself. That meant that I could call in the supply drop way ahead of time and more accurately. I waited for Liquid to jump off his throne, and when he did, I called for the supply drop. Eventually, the box dropped and landed square on his noggin, knocking him out and completing the objective. So technically, I did use a gun to knock him out. The gun was just inside a box. What a genius move, if I do say so myself. Mission 28, Code Talker, is probably the hardest mission in this challenge so far. At the start of this mission, we have to fight 4 sniper skulls, and that's like fighting 4 quiets at once. As we know, it took about 20 minutes for me to fight just her alone, so you can imagine how this went. Mercifully, they don't cover as much ground as Quiet, so they're a lot easier to catch, but 4 women looking at me made me extremely nervous. So I did end up taking a few hits. Of course, they probably expect you to take these girls out from long range, and normally I am used to being at least 100 meters away from a woman, often by court order, but for this challenge, we need to get a little bit closer. Not too close though, or they'll jump away. So essentially, we have to be in the middle ground and try and snipe with a pistol. It wasn't as hard as it sounds. It was kind of a semi. Their laser sights do give them away, and they only have a few positions they can go in, so it's mostly just a matter of time and focus. Speaking of focus, just focusing on one skull at a time is probably the best idea. Sometimes they'll dash towards you and try and knife you, which is something I've never seen before. At least, not in game anyway. But when they do this, it's a good chance to pistol all over their face. I often wonder who these people were before they got skulled. The clothes they wear is slightly different, so it implies some kind of personality, but this is the only mission that the sniper skulls appear in, and they don't really do much. I've always found it a bit strange that they get introduced like this, and then they just disappear forever. All I know is that the last sniper skull that I fought must have had all the recessive genes, because she just kept running back and forth between 2 spots, and letting me pop her head off. Once they're all defeated, they go and have a lay down in the forest, and it turns out the skulls are actually invincible. I shot all over this woman and nothing happened. They're completely immune, which means they're probably the strongest enemy in the whole series. So I decided to kidnap them. After all that hoo-haddery, it's just a matter of taking out every single enemy at the mansion, which is easy enough. I quite enjoy this aggressive playstyle. Yeah, it's nice to be sneaky and creative, but sometimes you just need to unload. Unfortunately, killing is one of those things that gets easier the more you do it. We puff on Code Talker's pipe, and then new enemies spawn in. Because we took out the skulls, this area is now swarming with soldiers. The real problem is the tank and the helichopper. Mostly the tank, because it can one-shot. So I went around the back of the mansion and spent the next 15 minutes taking out the main dudes and the chopper. There's some extra fellas further up the road and in the forest, but the tank is the most important target for now. I found myself a nice safe spot to attack it from, but this is one of those super strong endgame tanks, so it's gonna be another half an hour of shooting. Eventually the thing blows up, and now all we have to do is clean up the rest of the guys and carry Code Talker out of the area. Right after that mission, we have to go and fight the Armoured Skulls. Again. We already did this in Mission 16, so this is easy shit. It even takes place in the exact same area. Even so, it still takes ages. And I'm sure you can imagine how the journey to Skullface goes. That's right, I shot everyone, and it took ages. That appears to be the catchphrase for this challenge. Even though it does take a long time, once we finish it, we are rewarded with the lovely Donna Burke. It's all worthwhile. Mission 31, Sahelanthropus. The final mission in Chapter 1. Probably the mission you've been hoping to see since the start, and I wouldn't blame you if you just skipped straight to this part to see if it was possible to beat Sahelanthropus with just a pistol. And the answer is, yes, you can beat Sahelanthropus with just a pistol. But guess what? That's right, it takes ages. The biggest problem with this fight is just waiting for ammo drops. The pistol is obviously really weak and the health bar is barely moving, even in super fast motion. But my god, 90 bullets is not a lot. So most of the time is spent just waiting around for a box to drop nearby so I can pick up some extra bullets. But you know, as long as you don't just stand there like a pillock and keep on the move, This fight is fairly straightforward. Trying to keep focused for almost an hour straight is probably the hardest part. This is why I hardly ever do low damage challenges in games, because my concentration levels are terrible. The good news is that you can take a few hits, so you don't have to play perfectly, which is good, because that's one of my thousands of biggest weaknesses. Early on in the fight you get some help from air support and P-Quad, but as the fight drags on, they don't come in to help anymore. Well, at least not of their own volition anyway. So this really is a test of endurance. You also want to try and keep a few rounds of ammo in reserve to take out the rockets and mantids when he eventually shows up. It's something I tried to do, but I always thought that the supplies were going to drop faster than they did. And if you run out of ammo for the weapon you're currently using, Ocelot will drop supplies for you. The trouble with that is that he drops them in specified areas, and they're often really far away. So I mostly try to stick to manual supply drops because you can drop them specifically on your head. Well, obviously not directly on your head, but you know what I'm saying. It took me almost 45 minutes and over 3,000 bullets, but eventually I managed to take down Sahelanthropus with just a pistol. With that done, we finish chapter 1 and we can move on to chapter 2. Unfortunately, there's a lot of repeat missions in chapter 2, so we're going to have to go back and essentially play the same things we've already done. The trickier ones are the total stealth versions because you can't go buns glazing anymore. You can still kill everyone in the mission if you're quick enough and have a suppressor, but you can't be as aggressive. Waiting for a dude to open the door in Over the Fence is still proper fucky though, especially because you can't get caught, but it is still possible. The unique missions in chapter 2 are really hard though. A lot of the enemies in these missions have riot suits on, and you need to shoot shitloads of rounds into them to even break the armor to be able to deal damage. The pistol is also so weak that the enemies don't even flinch when they've been shot, which makes them a lot more formidable. It's a good job we can wear a combat suit of our own. That slightly evens the odds somewhat. Proxy War Without End was possibly the worst mission in this entire game. We have to take out a helichopper and 4 endgame tanks. Each of those tanks takes half an hour to destroy. That's right, half an hour each. At least we have our beloved green fence that we can shoot through, but my god, this was bad. On the plus side, I do have a very muscular finger now, so perhaps it's not all bad. There's a few extreme versions of the missions we played as well. They're all played exactly how we played them in chapter 1, and if you can believe it, they take even longer. Let me tell you this, I am never fighting the skulls with a low damage weapon ever again. This shit has given me post-traumatic skull disorder. I even fought Sahelanthropus on extreme, just for you. Although, I think I may have found a safe-ish spot for it. Up on the hill behind this rock seems to make Sahelanthropus do jumps more often than anything else. And even when he does the other attacks, the rock and the cliff seems to block him, or at least helps mitigate most of it. So, funnily enough, this fight actually went a lot smoother than the one in chapter 1. Well, still not great because it took forever, but better than I expected. Even after all this time, I'm still finding new stuff. I've been looking around and I can't see any places where there is a proper safe spot, so if you do know where you can have a proper good safe spot for Sahelanthropus, let me know. Unfortunately, things go downhill from here. I don't think back up, back down on extreme mode can be done with just the base pistol. It's been taking about 25 minutes to take out the vehicles in the regular missions, so there's absolutely no way you'd be able to take out the extreme variant in under 15 minutes. I even tried it with the infinite ammo bandana, so I didn't have to wait for ammo drops, and whilst it's very close, I still don't think it's possible to take this tank out with just a pistol in under 15 minutes. Well, technically it'll be about 14 by the time you get there, but you know what I mean. The pistol just doesn't have enough damage. Maybe if I had an auto fire controller, then perhaps, but as muscular as my finger might be, my fingering just can't keep up with this demand. So, regrettably, I had to break out the big boy and use the CB version of the pistol. As I said at the start, it is the same gun, but it's in a fancy house, but it also does a little bit more damage. And fortunately for us, that damage is just enough to be able to take out the tank with a few minutes to spare. Obviously, that's not how I would have liked to have done this, but that is the least of our worries, unfortunately. There's 2 missions in Chapter 2 that can't be done just using the pistol. C2W and Occupation Forces in subsistence mode. The reason for that is because they don't let you bring the pistol into them. Subsistence means you go in with nothing. If we're being cheeky, which I often like to be, we can CQC steal a weapon from a soldier twice, and that means they'll give us a pistol. Sadly, that pistol will be a Burkov since these are Russian soldiers. So technically we could destroy the radio in C2W and complete the mission using a pistol, but it's not the pistol. Occupation Forces in subsistence mode is just straight up impossible. You're not allowed to call in for supply drops, so you're never going to have enough ammo to take out the tanks. Of course you can steal a Burkov pistol and shoot the colonel, but that's really as far as it goes. The only way to really do this is to have Pequod come in, so you can shoot the tanks with your pistol a few times and he can finish them off. But it's not really pistol only at that point, is it? So yeah, it's very sad. But technically, you don't necessarily need to play these missions to continue the story. So let's just pretend that this never happened. The final unique mission is Shining Lights, Even in Death. The mission where you have to kill your own team and put them out of their misery. They give you a pistol for this one as well, so for once in one of my challenge runs, these kills are perfectly fine. Although, I do wish these people had a bit more place in the story, so it wasn't just like, oh no, Rabid Bat, he has to die. You know, Rabid Bat, that well-known character. I don't know, I just think it would have been nice if these guys had a few more scenes with V where they were maybe talking to him about themselves and why they joined Diamond Dogs and who they were before. Or maybe even just add a mess hall into Mother Base where you could go in, walk around and watch everyone just living their life and having conversations. We do have that to an extent, but it's just kind of like a handful of dudes standing around on the surface and having idle chat. So I think if we could see who these people were, it would make this a lot more heart-wrenching. But you know, like always, I just want too much. It makes me wish I had any kind of talent. I'd probably try and make their stories into a little short comic or an animation, or I'd maybe even try and mod this aspect into the game. But no, I just sit here talking bollocks on the internet. Although I will say, the part where the Diamond Dogs salute and you have to shoot them, and the music's playing in the background, that's really good. I like that. But enough of all that, let's see if we can beat Mission 45, A Quiet Exit. This mission's objectives are to take out 14 tanks and a load of dudes. As we know, it takes about 25 minutes or so to take out one tank with a pistol. So you can probably imagine how this is going to be, trying to take out 14 of them. However, given the fact that Klye is here, it means that she'll be doing the majority of the work. Our main goal is to do what we've been doing for the whole game. Become the target. If we keep the enemy attention, the tanks will focus on us and not Klye, which means that Klye can take everyone out, because obviously we're not going to do much in terms of damage, but she is, so keeping her alive, that's what we've got to do. Having the combat suit on helps a lot, but it doesn't mean that we're invincible. More often than not, we have to pop out, be annoying, and then quickly get back into cover to recover health or avoid the damage. One day I am going to get that super duper amazing combat suit, but mate, those requirements are crazy high. Klye actually makes this fairly easy, if I'm honest. As long as we can keep the enemy aggro and sit behind cover, then she can take out every single tank and enemy that shows up. Well, I mean, it is her mission, I suppose, so she should probably be taking the spotlight and be good at this mission. However, there's a problem. She didn't want to destroy the final tank. At the final hurdle, she decided she was gonna troll me. So I had to take this final tank out by myself. As if I hadn't done enough of this already. Thankfully, there is a safe spot right behind Klye where we can shoot through a hole in the floor. But guess what? That's right, this took ages. Since Quiet was doing so well, I thought we could just coast to the finish line. But no, we have to sit here and shoot this shit for half an hour. I kinda regret letting her live now. Half an hour goes by and finally, the thing blowed up. Quiet then leaves us a tape behind, which I had a quick listen to.
You sent me a message first, yeah? I live in Smethwick, Birmingham. If you want the fucking brawl, come down Smethwick, ask for Danny G. I'll come out my house and I'll break your fucking legs, you little prick. Now what do I say? Now what do I fucking say?
Clearly, it's time to give Quiet that rematch. In extreme mode, she can one-shot. So unless you're wearing decent armour, you need to take this very, very carefully. Sneaking up on her is the only real option here. Facing her head on is a death sentence. As always, the catchphrase for this challenge, this took ages. This took well over an hour and we tussled far into the night, but with the final shot on her face, she goes down. So what's it gonna be? Loyalty to Quiet or loyalty to the mission? If there's anything we can believe in with absolute certainty, it's the mission. And with that final squeeze of the trigger, we finish off the pistol only challenge. I started this challenge off with 220 pistol kills, and after shooting every single enemy in every single mission, I ended the challenge with 1,984, which is insane. I would have liked to have done this on a fresh save file so we could see the Demon Snake transition, but I never was a hero. Never will be. I've always been a demon. So, can you beat Metal Gear Solid V using only Snake's pistol? Yeah, you absolutely can. Well, mostly. Barring a few story bits here and there and Chapter 2 with the subsistence thing, yes, you definitely can. Chapter 1 can be done using the pistol, and Chapter 1 is what I always consider to be the main game, because the majority of Chapter 2 is the missions we've already played in Chapter 1, but even so, 98% of Chapter 2 can be done with just a pistol as well, even if it does take an ungodly amount of time and sanity. So yeah, you definitely can beat the game with just Snake's pistol. You just need to enjoy all the killing and be a little bit mental, which I do, and I am. Thank you so much for watching, I hope you enjoyed it. Let me know any other challenge run ideas you'd like to see. Please do leave a like if you like and subscribe if you want to. And as always, take care.